Trinity Broadcasting family of networks, reaching our world for 41 years.
The following program does not necessarily represent the views of the Trinity Broadcasting Network.
Hello and welcome to Join Our Town. I'm your host, Kelly Waldire. Today we're here to dispel some misconceptions that people might have about those who have been incarcerated. We're going to be talking about a program called Thresholds, which is a nonprofit that is making profound changes in the lives of those who are behind bars. So please welcome with me Tina Stanton and Alec Fenyas. Thank you both so much for being here.
Nice to be here.
So you are both volunteers with Thresholds, correct?
I'm a volunteer, as I have been for a long time. I'm also a staff person. I coordinate the program at the State Prison in Chester.
Terrific.
And I'm same. I'm a volunteer as well as a paid staff member at the G.W. Hill Correctional Facility in Thornton.
Let's get a little background about Thresholds. What exactly is the mission of Thresholds?
Okay.
We aim to teach decision-making skills to people in prison. It's a specific decision-making process. It was designed to be taught to people in prison by someone named Mickey Burglas, who was in prison himself, and he realized that decision-making was what landed him there. And he tried to help other people in prison to help them learn a better way to make decisions and take control of their lives and realize that they had choices. Often they're acting on their feelings or they're following someone else, and this way stop and think, realize you have choices to make, different ways to reach your goals, decide where you're going and how you're going to get there.
So is this program offered to those who are currently incarcerated, and then it's to help them really once they get out?
Well, they start using it immediately while they're in prison, but mostly, yes, to help them when they get out so that they don't come back, so they have a better life and better for their families. And Thresholds also, it brings in volunteers from the outside into the prison, and that's important too. It helps the wider community connect with those in prison, so there's not the disconnect between the two. So it makes a difference to the volunteers' lives as well.
Okay, now you both mentioned the different areas that you are in. What geographical locations does Thresholds serve?
Well, Thresholds in Delaware County is the organization we work for. There are 3 facilities. The State Prison of Chester is where Tina works. The Juvenile Correction Facility in Lima, and the G.W. Hill Correctional Facility in Thornton, where I work.
That's the county prison.
It's the county prison, right.
Okay, now is Thresholds in more than just Delaware County, or is it really specific just to this area?
It started actually in Bucks County and then came down to Delaware County, and it's also in the state of Delaware and in Massachusetts and Florida.
And there's a Chester County Thresholds as well, and there is one in Delaware as well.
So they might be serving in prisons in other counties, but those are the 3 specific ones.
And some other states as well.
Other states and counties.
There have been branches starting up other states as well.
Who developed this program? You mentioned Mickey.
Mickey Burglas, Milton Burglas was his name. You want to talk about Mickey?
Mickey Burglas was an inmate in New Orleans, and he was there in some kind of a financial dealing problem, and he noticed that the inmates were not making good decisions, and so after he got released from prison, he went to Harvard and did his PhD on the decision-making process as it pertains to prisoners. And this was like 45 years ago. And he also started up the Thresholds program, and which we modified to suit our functioning here. But he is the one who set up the basic program back about 45 years ago.
And he also helped establish the nonprofit organization, and he
Right.
very wisely let it go. He handed it off. He no longer was in control of it then. It belonged to the organization, and the organization has modified it as times have changed and simplified it some. Mickey was a very deep thinker. His was a little more elaborate than what it is now. But we're constantly updating it. We ask for feedback from our clients, what we can do better and what could be different, and we're always changing things to try to keep up.
When you say try to keep up, Threshold has been in existence since the 70s, correct?
Correct, yes.
So this is a well-established nonprofit.
Hopefully. And there have been dedicated people. There's some still around from many, many years ago, and dedicated people who hold it together, and it wouldn't exist without people like that.
We even have a volunteer who's took over from her mother.
Wow.
So second generation person.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. So why is this program so important to those who are incarcerated?
Oh, it's hard to know. We hope that they're going to be less likely to return to prison, and I think the biggest impact of what we do, it enables people to basically slow down and not react to situations. Because if they can slow down and think about what they're doing, they're much less likely to make a mistake. And I think that's the essence of our program. In addition to what Tina said, that having contact with folks from the outside. Many of the inmates we deal with come from very, very disadvantaged, poor backgrounds, and having a connection to the real world is very, very helpful to them.
A lot of our clients are just blown away by the thought that people from the outside care enough and come in and give up their time and come and treat them like a human being who's capable of making their own decisions. And just that much, I think, makes a big difference. And hopefully they'll learn some of the Thresholds 6-step process. First, the main thing is to stop and think and make a decision. And then we also have a 6-step process to make that decision more likely to turn out well. It's not a guarantee, but it hopefully will help, especially if they use it.
In your experience, are a lot of these people not someone who really has had a person in their past connecting with them or really showing them that they care, if they're so surprised, you know, that people from the outside world are coming in?
Yeah, yes, definitely. Yeah, there's a different group of people that I work with versus Tina. Tina works in a state prison, and I think she sees more hardened criminals. The people who first time get in trouble for the first time come to the county jail where I work, and they seem to a lot of them are just lost souls. You know, they don't know how to deal with the system. They get in trouble. And they wind up in prison, and so they are very. We can see the change in them. You know, when we first see them, sometimes they're not communicative, kind of morose, and as we progress with them, they become friendlier, more outgoing, more social. A complete transformation takes place in some of them.
But at the state prison, it's the offenses they have committed are of a higher level. The prison in Chester has a drug rehab program, so a lot of them are in for drug offenses, and it also leads to burglary, and sometimes there's aggravated assault and things like that. So it's a more serious level of crime. But the biggest thing I've learned from Thresholds is that people in prison are as varied as people anywhere. They all kinds of backgrounds, all ages, and you know, there have been some who have not had people to talk with, but there have been people who had very supportive families. I've had lawyers and doctors, I've had middle class, I've had everything. And maybe you're more likely to come to prison if you are from a disadvantaged background, but there's all kinds that take our program. And in the state prison, by the time they get to that level and by the time they sign up for thresholds, they're taking life more seriously. A lot of them say they've been in prison for 2 years and then they had an epiphany saying, this is serious, this is my life, even if they're in their 50s. So they're really, the ones who sign up for thresholds are really trying to do better and change their lives.
Yeah, the people we see some people who it's their first experience with being incarcerated, and they are really upset. They don't understand what's happening to them, and they are very appreciative of seeing people who care about them.
Part of your program states that self-image is directly correlated to how somebody interacts with society. Can you elaborate on this and maybe give us some examples of how you've seen this with the people that you've worked with?
We talk about that in the group class. We call that macro. We have micro, which is a one-on-one session, which most of our volunteers do. And then we have a few other volunteers who teach the group class. And so they have both concurrently. They meet once a week with the micro one-on-one, and they meet once a week with the macro, and that's the group. And then that we talk about the related concepts like self-image. And we talk about how the way you present yourself, what we call your operating image, how you see yourself comes across to other people, and they're going to treat you like that. If you see yourself as a clown, people are going to treat you like a clown. And so sometimes your behavior has to prove who you are on the inside, and who you are on the inside is going to come across on the outside also. So it reinforces and interacts.
And if you see yourself as an ex-con, people are going to see you as an ex-con too. So that's one of the reasons we emphasize this operating image, is that, you know, just because you've been in prison, you don't have to behave like a person who's been in prison. You know, you be aware of the fact that that if you behave like that, the people are going to see you like that.
But also, when they get out, a lot of them have changed. Being in prison is a life-changing thing, hopefully, and a lot of them, if they really have changed, but they're going back to the same community because they need a place to live in order to get out. And they say, people there are going to treat me as the person I was, and I've got to prove that I'm not that person anymore. And it's not going to always be very easy, but they can do it if their behavior shows it.
Okay, so a big part of this is the decision-making process. How is that different from problem-solving skills? Having decision-making skills versus problem-solving skills?
Well, you don't have to have a problem to make better decisions. You know, in my mind, that's the biggest difference. We make decisions all the time, whether you have problems or not. So it's a separate set. You know, certainly if you have a problem, you have to make decisions. But the process of decision making is not necessarily related to having a problem.
Sometimes it's just a dream, a goal, because there's something you want rather than something that's a problem you have to solve.
This program could be of a benefit, you know, that learning decision-making skills is not something that's limited to just people who we think have a problem. You know, they encountered a problem, they're in prison now. Decision-making skills affect us all.
Yeah, anybody could benefit from our program. I feel like I've benefited from it.
Yeah, all the volunteers say we've used thresholds in our own lives, and it has helped us with problems and with dreams and goals, and So, and if you think about it, you're constantly making decisions. And sometimes the guys in prisons, we ask them to think of a decision they recently made, and they say, "Oh, I don't make decisions in here." And I'll say, well, you decided to get out of bed this morning. You do make decisions. You decide to cooperate or not cooperate. There are decisions. And then you start realizing, yes, I make decisions. And so everyone makes decisions all the time.
Can you give us any examples of how somebody's perspective, how their mind has been changed from the first day joining Threshold even to the end? So they made that decision, they joined, they wanted to become a part, but they might still have some skepticism. How do they change over the course of the program?
But the most important thing I notice is that people come in very closed, and they don't seem to trust anything or anybody. And very often, especially in the classroom setting, in the macro class, they become much more open, communicative, and more trusting, which is we think is a very important part of decision making, is to be able to figure out who you can trust and you can't. You know, so.
And I've also seen their minds open up. I've had clients who, we have lots of, in our workbook that we work with examples, hypothetical situations, and some of them just cannot think of a hypothetical situation. And that's one of the reasons they weren't able to think of creative ways of reaching their goals. You've got to be able to think of different possibilities, right? And I've had clients who just could not at first, and I had to prompt them, and by the end they were coming up with their own ideas. And it was really beautiful to see. And some of them are very self-centered, and it's appropriate to be self-centered in the prison and work on changing yourself, but we talk a lot about how your decisions affect other people, and they realize that, yeah, I've got to think more about how the consequences of my actions, not just for me, but for everyone else as well, and hopefully their mind is opening up to that too.
Are there any things that you encounter that impede people participating in this program?
Well, some of them have language problems. Some of them are not particularly literate. Some of them have very poor social skills. To the three basic problems. I don't know about.
Yeah, I've had everyone from PhDs to people who are just learning how to read and write. At the state prison, they have a GED program that they take during the day if they don't have their high school diploma, and some of them are just learning how to read and write, in which case usually the teacher will sit across the table from their student, but if I have a client who's just learning how to read and write, I sit next to them and I have them read. I follow with my finger and point to the words and things like that. But when we train our volunteers, we say, when you first start with your client, you don't want to ask them, how well can you read and write? But you can have them read out loud to you, take turns reading out loud, and when I interview them to set up the class, I watch how well they can write. And I make little notes, and I let my volunteer know when the person is coming and say, this person has difficulty writing, or something like that. So we get a feel for that, and then it might make it more challenging, but anyone can learn this. Sometimes we have someone who doesn't speak English. I wish we had more bilingual teachers. But I managed to work with someone who only spoke Spanish by having another person who was bilingual, and we worked together, and one guy translated for the other guy. It worked. So you do what you can.
We also have some volunteers that have special education skills that we can match up people with limited abilities.
So if any of our viewers are connecting with this who feel like they want to get involved, they should do that. There's no limit on who can or who cannot participate.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, wonderful. Is there somewhere they could go for information about how they could volunteer?
Well, we have a website,
Our website, yes.
Okay.
which is www.thresholdsdelco.org.
Let's get a little bit more specific into what the program actually is. Now, you mentioned 6 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us briefly what they all are, and then we'll break them down a little bit more fully?
You want to? Or shall I? All right, step 1.
Go ahead.
Define the situation.
Yes.
What's going on? How did it get to be that way? How do you feel about it? What are the facts? Step 2, set the goal. Where are you going from here? What do you want to achieve? What do you need to achieve? Step 3, look at the different possibilities on how to reach your goal. What can you do? Your goal is your next situation. The possibilities are the actions you can take to get to your goal. And we try to generate a whole lot of different possible ways to reach your goal. Step 4, evaluate the possibilities. We look at 3 things: the risks, the benefits, and the effect on other people of the different possibilities, of maybe the 4 most likely possibilities. And then step 5, you make the decision. You choose, decide what you're going to do to reach your goal. And then the last step, we talk about implementing the decision. A decision's no good unless you make it happen. So how do you stay on track? How do you stay motivated? How do you evaluate how well things are going and if you need to do something differently?
And also a last step has an action plan and trying to figure out what steps you should do first and next so you can to reach your goal.
Now, I noticed that each step has a symbol associated with it. Why the use of symbols, and why is that important?
Well, we use symbols a lot. We think it helps people identify and remember the steps.
And just like, say, with advertising and things like logos, if you have a visual little thing to help you remember the idea. A lot of what we teach is common sense stuff and stuff they've learned in other programs, but we try to put it together in a structure where you can remember it and use it effectively, especially if you're under stress. And so if you have a symbol, that'll just help you remember that much better what the steps are. And we have symbols for other things as well.
Let's go over these a little bit more thoroughly. When we're talking about define the situation, that's step one. What are you teaching participants in the program when you're talking about that?
Okay, well, first, the first step is trying to recognize where the situation comes from, and we have an acronym for that called. Come on, step.
the roots of the situation.
Yeah, CARD. CARD. So it's CARD stands for chance, assumption, reaction, decision. So those are.
So is it a result of chance? Is it a result of an assumption you made? Is it a result of a reaction you had, or is it a result of a decision?
Yes, and then I think to me one of the important parts of step one is understanding that every situation has a gift and a limit. So sometimes when you're in jail, you've just been arrested, it's difficult for them to see any gift to the situation, but we explain to them, there's a lot of gifts to being in prison. Threshold is one of them. You can't have thresholds if you're on the outside, and being able to understand that every situation has a gift to a limit, and a limit is something that can center a person, keep you from panicking. Well, it's not so bad because these other things are also happening, and.
We have the external and the internal. The external are the facts of the situation. I say, like a reporter, the who, the what, the where, what's going on, just the simple facts. And then the internal is your feelings, emotions, as well as your attitudes and your thoughts. So those are the things inside of you. So we describe the situation in terms of the external and the internal.
And the important thing about doing that is that recognizing that there's an emotional reaction to the things that happen around you. So you understand that there's always an emotional and a thing which is within you that you can control, as well as the world around you happening.
Yeah, if you know what's happening inside of you, you can deal with it.
A big part of this program is goal setting. How important is it for them to be able to not only see the possibility, but to set a firm goal and then reach it?
That very, very important. That's the essence of it. That's why the second step is goal setting, and being able to set a goal is one of the essential parts of our program. And one of the first things we tell them is that the goal you have is very much dependent on your values. So if you want to, if it's important to you to get a college degree, then that comes from your inside, from your values. And we don't tell people what their goal should be. That they have to decide that for themselves, because thresholds itself is basically a tool, so which only works well if you use it well. So it all has to be kind of personal.
And the goal also, we say, you need to make it what we call SAM, specific, achievable, and measurable. Really envision it. Spell it out. You might need to change it later, but if you're heading for something, you need to know what you're aiming for.
Yeah, otherwise, you don't know when you get there.
or how you're going to get, and you'll stay motivated if you can envision it.
Recidivism is a term that people use. Can you define that really quick for us?
Coming back to prison.
Are the rates of recidivism lower for people who have completed thresholds than just the general population of those?
50%.
Well,
50%.
50% lower.
It's a hard thing for one thing, it's very hard to get all the data about who's in prison and who's taking thresholds and stuff. But also our group is self-selective. They volunteer to take thresholds, so they may be the ones who are less likely to come back. So we've tried to control that by looking at people who have started the program and for some reason beyond their own control, they couldn't complete it because they were released or transferred or something like that, and compare those people to the ones who completed the program or the ones who did not take the program. And it seems if you complete thresholds, even if you started and couldn't, if you complete thresholds, you're less likely to come back to prison. Yeah, but it's hard to prove.
Yeah, the difficult thing to prove is what the people who come to us already want to change. Okay, so what would happen if they didn't have thresholds? It's really difficult to prove because the people come to us really are motivated. So we help them achieve that particular goal, but they're already motivated. So and they're not. Nobody comes to us who doesn't want to be there.
Okay.
But there are things that have been proven, many studies, not about thresholds, but in general, the more programming people get, the less likely they are to come back. Yes, that's been proven. So we just can act on the assumption that more programming is better.
Especially the people that get one-on-one counseling, and we're the only program that does that, other than religious people. We give people one-on-one practical counseling, and we are the only. For example, at the county prison, our volunteer organization is the only one that we have an office. The prison supports us, you know, and we are the largest volunteer organization in there. Non-religious organization in there that helps people.
So the one-on-one thing really makes us special, and our clients all say that's what they really love about it. But it also means that we can only teach as many people as we have volunteers.
That's right.
I've got a list of 100 people at the state prison, and a lot of them are gone by the time they get up to the top of our list. And we've tried doing two-on-ones, but that changes it. And the one-on-one is what makes us so special, and so we really need more volunteers all the time.
Can you give us that website one more time before we close today, in case any of our viewers want to volunteer?
It's www.thresholdsdelco.org.
Okay. Well, we are out of time for today. Tina, Ellie, thank you so much for being here. You were a wealth of information, and it sounds like a really wonderful program that you're both participating in.
We enjoy
thank you
it
very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been Joy in Our Town. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you'll check out that website and consider volunteering, and we will see you all next time.
TMC Recording Studio is a ministry arm of the Trinity Broadcasting Network. We are blessed being a division of TBN. We have the greatest, the finest equipment, the best A to D converters, and Mike Prees, our mic locker, is second to none.
The board is incredible. It's the best you can buy. As a producer, being in studios all over the country, I just think it's the best place in the world to come to.
If somebody's coming in and this is their first recording experience, we try to see what it is that the Lord has given you, the ministry that you have, and try to help you enhance that. So whether you are a professional, established act out touring, or whether this is the very first time you've even considered recording, you should give us a call and see what we can do for you. It's a really comfortable place for folks to come.
Would it be okay if I sat here? Is she serious? Whatever. New girl. Reaching out. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Hey, how's business?
Pretty good.
Wow, you are rich.
Actually, this money only represents the gross revenues. I still have to pay for the lemons, the ice, the sugar, table rental, marketing, thank you, and the employee benefits. There's a lot more that goes into running a business than I expected.
Go to econforyou.org to find out more about personal finance and business economics.
Oh, and then there's the competition.
This is TBN, part of the Trinity Broadcasting family of networks, reaching our world for 41 years.